Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last lecture of level 1, which is dedicated to introductory lectures of this series. As such, this is the last lecture where I have an opportunity of making comments on regarding this unfortunate collapse of ethics in physics, because all the remaining lectures will be technically mostly formula, and there is no room, or it will be appropriate in the other level 2, 3, 4, and 5 to consider ethical issues. Very well. So in this lecture, I intend to speak out my mind for a very simple reason, because now since I joined Harvard University in 1977 and announced under the support of the Department of Energy the initiation of research technically known or epistemologically known beyond Einstein and quantum mechanics, I've been the victim of coordinated, organized, all sorts of harassment, the disruptions, the discreditation, vexations, and so on. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I intend to express my judgment with respect to the colleagues who are responsible for this type of scientific banditism by using exactly the same language. I can assure you no more, but you can be sure no less. Also, I was planning to have a nice lecture, technical lecture on technical aspect pertaining to the so-called quark conjecture and neutrino conjecture. But then our group discovered that those vexations, interference, and act of scientific banditism are continuing to this day. Let me give you an example, a very, very recent example. Today is March 21st. We have been victim of an act of real scientific banditism, consisting of the interference, outside interference, with the organization of a workshop on astrophysics and cosmology that we had been invited to organize at the Republic of San Marino in the Italian peninsula, and in the first week of September. And we have been informed that of a various interference that allegedly originated through have been organized and orchestrated by a group of physicists at CERN, and headed by the Jewish physicist Gabriele Veneziano. And at least this is the allegation, but from a rather credible source at CERN to begin with, because we have friends at CERN too. And now you may remember the act of banditism perpetrated by Mr. Veneziano in 1992, in which he prohibited by his brothers and friends in various universities. He prohibited me to deliver lectures on experimental evidence that apparently at that time no longer indicated the limitations of quantum mechanics. There was a series of lectures that were prohibited. Now, since that act of banditism was done by Mr. Veneziano with with complete impunity, and I did not react, so he thought 9 years later, he thought, oh, I can do the same. That's what we suspect. Well, this time will not be the same. Indeed, the International Committee of Scientific Ethics and Accountability, now fully funded, has hired a specialized agency, investigative agency in Geneva, Switzerland, acting with branch also in Italy, to identify the documentation of the person responsible for this act of banditism. I can assure you that if we indeed succeed in identifying valuable documentation, the person responsible for this interference will be brought to justice. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, the first point I intend to make very clear: this interference on the pursuit of new knowledge via act of sheer banditism has got to stop and will be stopped. It will be stopped, not only by myself, now by scientists, outrageous scientists all over the world. Mr. Veneziano, his colleagues, are welcome to publish their opposing view in referee journals, because all our statements are published in referee journals. If he hasn't got any technical argument to oppose our dissident view with respect to his beliefs, Mr. Veneziano and his friends it's better to shut up, because the damage that he will inflict to himself, to CERN, and these ethnic groups are now very substantial. So it's better think it over. From now on, any interference will be very aggressively investigated and brought to justice if the elements emerge. Again, I was planning to have a nice technical lectures on quarks and neutrino, but this recent episode changed completely my mind. I am now in a visible state of agitation. We were forced during this weekend to change the website and remove the Republic of San Marino from the announcement. And the announcement has now been sent all over the world without any affiliation whatsoever. The affiliation will be kept secret. We have reached a point in keeping our scientific meeting attended by distinguished scientists the world over to keep the location secret because of act of banditism by people who know that they have no other way of behaving, certainly not without a shadow of dignity and science. Very well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the organization of this meeting. First, it is my duty to bring to your attention the implications of this lecture, namely that the doubts on the existence of quarks and neutrino as physical particles, they have direct societal relevance. They imply new clean energy. This is very appropriate, especially now that Japan is suffering this enormous radiation disaster. After identifying the implication of in advance, so that you understand the rest of it, people in good faith, then I will pass to the litany of objection against the conjecture that quarks are physical particles in our space-time. In part 3, I will review the litany of objections against the conjecture that the plethora of different neutrinos are indeed physical particles in our website. In part 4, I have asked my wife to present her view on this global collapse of ethics. I had to insist because she did not want to be part, but finally she accepted. I think she has to express her view because she has shared with me the aggravations, the accusations, and all sort of act without human dignity. Being a lady, she will put a little grace in an otherwise rather, let's be straight, putrescent situation of science on a worldwide basis. Also, being a clinical social worker, she can express the problem of scientific ethics and the possible solutions, not only with grace, as I said, but also with professional insight. Finally, I've been requested by many colleagues all over the world to present my view on how restore scientific democracy in our society. And I will do this in part 5, by identifying with clarity, to avoid a farce, the origin of the problem, and submit very humbly my recommendation. I want to have them on record, of course, with no expectation that they will be seriously considered, let alone implemented. But that's the very reason why I want them on record. Very well, let's get started with part 1. Okay, let me state up front what is my position on quark conjecture. My position is identical to that of the originators of quark theory, Murray Gell-Mann, the Nobel Prize, Murray Gell-Mann. And this, in my words, can be essentially stated as follows. Number 1, I consider, as by following Nobel Prize Gell-Mann, the so-called SU3 classification of hadron subsequently became SU3 color and then the so-called standard model. I consider this classification as being excellent. Careful word classification. We are talking about Mendeleev type classification of hadron into family. It works. It has proved through the decades to predict new hadron, exactly as the Mendeleev table of atoms predicted new atoms that they were then discovered. This is evidence that it worked. I mean, somebody may think that can be improved. I have no interest. It works so well. I have no interest of any improvement whatsoever.